Well, hello again. I'm Pete Torriello.
And I'm Maureen Torriello.
And we welcome you once again to the Sonic Boomers podcast. And this is our first podcast under the new name for the show. Really, nothing else is going to change, maybe one or two little tweaks here and there, but it's basically the same show that you've come to know over the last year and a half. But we decided that we needed to make a name change on the show, Maureen. And why did we do that?
Well, we was doing a little research because, as always with aim of any podcast is you want to get a lot of listeners. And we had a steady number every week and it wasn't really growing. So we started researching what does it take to grow your podcast. And we realized that we needed to have something in the title that was searchable and that would gain us more listeners that were randomly looking for podcasts. And so we came up with the Sonic Boomers.
The idea, of course, being that Maureen and I are both baby boomers, and every week we get Sonic talking about whatever we pull off the top of our heads.
Or someplace else.
And very often straight from the heart, and that hasn't changed. And this week's topic is conversation overheard in a diner.
Yes.
Okay. We're guilty. We were eavesdropping. But come on. Who doesn't? Who doesn't? Really, be honest with yourselves. Everybody,
especially when somebody's talking particularly loud and it's a very interesting conversation.
Just couldn't help but overhear the table that was like 6 feet away from us.
Yeah.
And it was like a two-part conversation, right?
Right.
Okay. First of all, let's set the stage.
Okay.
Who was at the table?
There was one woman, a white woman. She was maybe in her 60s. And another white guy, I'm assuming it was her husband. He also seemed to be about the same age. Mm-hmm. And then there was also a similar aged black gentleman with them. And then there was a young...
Probably like in his mid-30s, maybe?
No, the black guy was like maybe 50s.
Oh, was he? Okay.
Yeah. He had gray hair, so...
Yeah.
And then the younger guy was... I'm thinking maybe their son, and he was maybe in his early 30s.
Yeah. So he would be like a millennial.
You tell me. I don't know what the definitions are.
I know. Millennial, Generation X, Generation Y. It's a whole alphabet, and I don't really understand a whole lot of it.
Right, but they're definitely... He was not a boomer, let's put it that way.
Yeah. So here we are. We're sitting in the diner, and what's the first thing that you hear?
Well, the first thing is the woman says... Oh, I ran into my friend Mabel. I haven't seen her in 8-9 months, maybe a year. And boy, did she look great. She lost a whole lot of weight. And she gave me her recipe and for this, how she did it. And it was a green kale smoothie thing that she
Because
concocted.
nothing satisfies like a green kale smoothie.
Well, I say if it's green, it's not meant to be drunk. Except it's absinthe, maybe.
or green beer on St. Patrick's Day.
Okay, well, we'll go with that. Okay. But anyway, so she's talking about this woman's concoction and everything.
Yeah.
And then the know-it-all husband has to pipe up. That's ridiculous. That's a load of crap. I'm telling you, the only way you lose weight is calories in versus calories out. That's it. It's simple. Anybody who wants to lose weight can do it. You just have to monitor your calories. That's it. Don't be ridiculous there.
Now, Maureen and I are sitting there hearing this, and each of us has fought the battle of the bulge most of our lives.
Of course.
And I think for me, maybe to a more winning degree, for you, a less winning degree. I mean, it's been a real struggle for you.
Yeah.
I mean, you've even been on diets where did they have you once? Like 800 calories a day once or something on one of those diets?
About 1,000.
About 1,000 calories a day. And you lost weight by about 35, 40 pounds. And then it plateaued.
Right.
And it went back up again.
Right.
And you made no changes in what you were eating.
Right. And I was exercising and doing all the things you're supposed to do, and it didn't work.
So it doesn't always work.
Right. So I'm hearing this guy, right?
Yeah.
And I'm ready to practically jump out of my seat and say, no. But I'm being good. I'm just sitting there minding my own business and listening to the conversation. So then there's a TV going in the diner, and the news story comes on about the trial of
Derek Chauvin,
Derek Chauvin,
yeah, who murdered
George Floyd. And his trial was ongoing at the time when we were there, and that sparked the conversation to turn towards all things
it
racial.
got a little heated because the younger guy sitting there, whom I will assume is their son or something, is saying, he's shaking his head, and he's saying what I think the bulk of America, I would hope, is saying, this was a murder. This was 9 minutes and 29 seconds of really depraved indifference. And I use that as my own description. I know it's a legal term, and I'm not a lawyer, and I may not even be using it correctly. But what I saw on that screen was pretty depraved, and the officers seemed to be pretty indifferent that a man was dying under his knee.
Right.
So to me, that's depraved indifference.
That sounds good to me.
And so this young man was like really fired up, and Derek Chauvin is that they should find this guy guilty, of course, which they did. And he's like, he should never be allowed to be a police officer again. In fact, he should spend the rest of his days in prison because he is a murderer. That was his take on it.
Absolutely.
Then
we call them the political pundits. Their opposing
here's
viewpoint.
here's where it went off the rail and got stupid.
So the older lady, I shouldn't say old lady, she's probably my age.
Yeah.
But she acted like an old lady.
Yeah.
And she starts with, well, he was no choir boy. And, it was bad that happened, but it would have happened anyway because them kind, they're no good. No, they're bad apples, they're bad seeds. They're forever going to be bad, and they deserve. He got what he deserved.
He had a police record. I think he was in jail like 8 times or something. Bottom line is that didn't qualify him for the death penalty, which Derek Chauvin administered.
Yeah.
You don't go, as far as I know, there isn't anything in the penal code that says you get executed for passing a phony bill.
And you don't get executed without a trial either.
Yeah. And the poor store owner was like, if I knew it was going to go down this way, I never would have called the cops.
Yeah.
I never would have called the cops.
Poor guy.
That's a lot of weight to carry on your shoulders.
Yeah. But
he thought he was doing the right thing.
Yeah.
Somebody passed him a phony buck and he called the cop. Who the hell thought it was going to wind up in a guy being murdered?
No, absolutely not. But this woman was just railing on and on about, how this guy, how George Floyd was no darn good, and he got what was coming to him.
Never would be any good.
So that was where the conversation started to derail. Eventually, it got so heated that the young guy that was on the good guy in this scenario, he got up and walked out on them.
Yeah, he's like, I can't hear any more of this. I'm done. I'm out of here.
Right.
I'll see you.
Right. And I wanted to get up and applaud at that point.
Right. The thing that I thought was interesting was that the black gentleman really didn't say a whole hell of a lot through the whole conversation.
He was pretty quiet. He didn't seem to be on either side.
Because I thought he would have been on his feet and walking out.
Right, or at least upset about the woman's obviously racial prejudice.
Yeah.
And yet they were friends, so I guess she's not totally prejudiced.
No, and they went out as friends.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I don't get it.
Yeah.
It's the kind of thing that you listen and it makes your head explode if you think about it too far.
And I'm sitting there and I'm hearing this conversation, and it's like, wow, this is 2021. And we're hearing this kind of a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And clearly, we're not past this in these United States.
Unfortunately not.
We are not past this.
We've come a ways.
We've come a ways. There's been a lot of progress, but the problem is, and I think that you had mentioned this, you can pass all of the laws and all of the anti-discrimination legislation that you want.
Yes.
But you're not going to change people's hearts. You're not going to change their minds. It's going to be very hard to change the way that you were raised.
Yeah.
Very hard to change your upbringing.
Right. And also, if you were brought up in a very vanilla kind of setting where you didn't encounter people of color or people from different backgrounds, you have nothing to go on. You know, I think what helps break the barriers is when you experience someone's kindness or someone's compassion or someone's friendship that you wouldn't have ordinarily sought out as a friend, and you're surprised, and that has an impact on you. But if all you ever meet are people that are just like you,
yeah,
well, you have no frame of reference.
No, it just confirms what you are already thinking or what you have already been taught.
And and you see the stories on the news about the crimes and different things that happen, and it just reinforces your prejudicial stereotypes.
Yeah, and
that's not good, and it's not going to help any. I don't know. I think the only real hope in making any concerted change is that each generation coming on needs to be raised in a more tolerant, compassionate household where these things are discussed and where they're explained and where there's a forum to, explore what it means to have people of color, people of different genders, people of different races living together.
Different cultural backgrounds.
Right,
yeah.
and living together. And until that happens, you could pass all the laws that you want. And the laws are good, too, because it does provide some kind of a penalty for the real egregious acts that take place. But the little things that happen on a day-to-day basis in the four walls of people's homes, there's no legislating that.
Yeah. Well, my folks were from Newark. And as I mentioned in a previous episode here on our podcast, I was adopted at birth. Mm-hmm. And when I was adopted, my mother and father lived in Newark. They lived on Hanford Street, 37 Hanford Street. And they owned a 3-family home there. So my mom was the landlady. Mm-hmm. And once the court approved my adoption in 1954, they sold the house. And they moved down here to Old Bridge. And back in those days, it was all woods down here,
sure.
And I remember asking my mom, so why did you leave Newark? This is when I was a teenager. Mm-hmm. Why did you leave Newark? And she said to me, Peter, I owned a 3-family house in Newark, or Newark, they say Newark, in Newark, and nobody was going to tell me who the hell I could rent to and not rent to. So you knew what that meant.
Yeah.
You knew what that meant. And my mom and dad were a part of the big white flight of the 1950s out of cities. Mm-hmm. And they moved down here. And I hate to feel like I'm throwing my mom and dad under the bus, because as an adopted kid, or as any kid, I couldn't have had better parents.
Oh, they were great.
They were the embodiment of self-sacrificial love in taking care of me and raising me. And I can't fault that. But my mother used to say to me, there's 3 kinds of people that you better not ever bring into my house, Peter. And as far as like dating.
Yeah.
And they couldn't be black, although Mom didn't say black.
Yeah.
They couldn't be Jewish, and Mom didn't say Jew. Yeah. And they couldn't be Hispanic, although Mom didn't say Hispanic.
Yeah.
So, yeah, my mom was Archie Bunker. Okay? And, and I hate to say that because, I adored her.
Of course.
But she wasn't perfect, and Dad wasn't perfect. And the interesting part of it was that my mom and dad had a maid. and she was black. Her name was Emily. And actually, when we moved out of Newark down here to Old Bridge, she actually would come down
Yeah.
for a
That's
while.
nice,
And I don't know how long they retained her services, but I guess she would either drive down, or I don't even remember her because
Yeah.
I was very, very young.
Yeah.
I was like maybe a year old or something, 2 years old
At most.
at
Yeah.
most. So I have no recollection of her. But so, it's kind of like, wow, like I could never date a woman of color, but it was okay to have one as your mate. And knowing my mom and dad, I'm sure she was treated very well,
I'm sure. Yeah.
but it's just, there's just kind of like something here doesn't.
Right. Well, I think that was the case though with a lot of the, our parents.
Yeah.
Mine were pretty prejudiced as well. It wasn't always so blatantly spoken, but it was kind of like, the N word was thrown around pretty freely, and
Yeah.
It was what it was. That was the culture, even like in our neighborhood, if there was any inkling that a person of color might be moving in, the neighbors were all bipping behind the back, and what can we do to force them out, kind of thing.
And then the for sale signs start popping up like crocuses.
Yeah, and it was that kind of a setting,
Yeah,
and it's not right, and I'm glad that I think I overcame it, but
In fact, there was a big real estate firm, we won't mention the name, in our area, and we lived in Irvington, New Jersey for 36 years before we came here to Old Bridge. And Irvington, New Jersey is predominantly black. I would say 95% now, I think, was as of the last census
could be.
that I saw.
It's got to be close to that, if not.
And we came down here because I wanted to come home to Madison Park, where I grew up and was raised, and it was very important to me to come home again. And also because Maureen has mobility challenges, it was important to us to get a ranch-type home where everything was on one level. So this really checked two boxes.
Right, and the prices down here were more reasonable.
And the prices
than up north.
than they were up in North Jersey. So that's how we wound up back here again.
Right. But it had nothing to do with, and the thing that kind of bothers me is because we did leave. I had people who say to me, "Oh, I'm so happy for you. You finally got out of there."
Yeah.
And that was not the problem,
No, it really was not. It wasn't the primary reason that we got out of there.
Yeah. Although, we heard it for all the 36 years that we were there. If we had a penny for every time somebody said this to us,
we'd be sending you a beautiful picture postcard from our place in Key West.
Yeah, Bermuda or something.
People would say to us, "Well, I used to live there, but I got out."
Yeah. And thereby, ... put the dots together, and you're a fool for staying there. And it was very insulting.
It was insulting, and it was hard houses there were a hard sell back in the day.
Yeah. I mean, at one point we did try to sell.
Yeah.
And again, it had nothing to do
How
with
many years ago was that we tried to sell?
Well, Sean was like 10-ish, so
over 30 years ago.
Yeah. So I mean, we were there maybe 5-6 years. That was our plan, was originally to stay there maybe 6 years, 7 years, and then try to move to
save up our money,
and get something else. And at that point, we put the house on the market, and it was sat on the market for like a year and a half, and we got like maybe 2 offers.
Low ball offers,
and
too.
they were really low.
Really low. I mean,
it was to the point, it was lower than what we paid for the house.
There's the one time I remember I said to the realtor, I said, "Here's your coat, put your hat on, and get the hell out of my house." I was so offended by this low ball offer.
Well, he's, if he gets an offer, he
has to present
legally
it.
He has to present it. But I just, we weren't even being difficult. It was less money than what we paid for the house. So there was no way we could even make it work if we wanted to.
And yet, a little over a year ago, we put the house up for sale.
And in 2 days, it sold.
It sold in 2 days, and for like $10,000 over the asking price or something.
Yeah. So I mean, that shows you how things changed.
The market has changed.
Yeah,
Market has changed a lot.
So that was our experience.
Yeah, that was our conversation overheard at the diner, and it kind of led to us putting this show together.
Yeah, because we talked about it afterwards. Did you hear? Because Pete and I are listening, and now we're not talking to each other. We're too busy listening to the thing. So then the ride on the car ride home was like.
Did you hear that? Did you hear what she?
Did she really say that?
Yeah. Did you see that guy get up and walk out? Wow. So the bottom line here is, if you're ever in a diner and you see us come in, keep your mouth shut.
Just talk softly if you don't want us to listen.
And now it's time for us to unveil a brand new feature here on the Sonic Boomers podcast. Oh, well, that wasn't supposed to happen. You know what I did? Shame
you pushed
on
the
me.
wrong button.
I didn't switch over to the new sound profiles. Let's do that again.
Okay.
And now it's time for us to introduce. And you've worked in radio how many decades, Peter? It is time for us to introduce our new feature. That's better. It's time for our baby boomer trivia question. Every week, Maureen and I are going to pull a question out of the Trivial Pursuit Baby Boomers box, and we will try to stump one another. And if you've never played Trivial Pursuit, do they even have it in the stores anymore?
I think so.
I hope so.
I think so.
You got to get it. You got to get it, man. It is hours of fun with your family and friends. We've had so much fun playing that over the years. Okay. You ready?
I guess so.
You're going to hit me first
No,
with
go
the
ahead.
question?
You go ahead. I'm still
All right,
looking at this.
Let me see what I got
decide.
here. What else I got? Okay, here we go. This is from the television category. What did Johnny Carson sometimes have on both ends of his pencil? Okay, those of you listening at home or watching on Facebook, play along with us. The question is, what did Johnny Carson sometimes have on both ends of his pencil? Your time begins now.
I don't know. What about, I guess I would guess an eraser.
Let me go and look at the answer. Right you are.
All right.
An eraser.
I figured it had to either be a point or an eraser.
Yeah, an eraser
Eraser.
on each end of the, I don't know why.
Probably just.
Oh, you know what he used to, I think he used to like bounce the pencil. He used to like spin it around and bounce it.
Do things like that,
And having the eraser on each end
Makes
would
it
allow
bounce.
him to bounce it off the desk.
Okay.
I'll bet that's what that
Maybe.
was.
And maybe also it was quiet because you don't want the noise picked up in the microphones.
Wow.
You know?
Wow, I'm impressed.
Okay. Well,
I'm impressed that you got that.
Well, since you gave me a TV, I'm going to give you a TV one, okay? Where did the Coneheads tell everybody they were from on NBC's Saturday Night?
Oh, I know this.
You do?
I think I know.
Okay.
Hit the music anyway. Watch this. Watch me take this.
I hope you're wrong.
They were from Beldar.
No.
What?
Well, at least not according to this card.
No.
It says France.
Really?
Maybe they were from Baldar, but they told everybody they were from France because the question says, where did the Coneheads tell everybody they were from? So maybe that's the key to it.
Oh, man. Man,
That was painful.
Wow. Epic fail on that one. I can't believe I messed that one up. Holy mackerel.
Well,
I was so, well, pride goeth before a fall, doesn't it,
yeah, I
Maureen?
guess so.
Wow.
Well, that's something we can look forward to next week.
We'll have another question toward the end of the show next week. By the way, if you want to send us comments about the new title for the show or comments about the show in general or suggestions for future shows, we have a brand new email address, which is Sonic Boomers. It's one word, sonicboomers@protonmail.com.
Oh.
PROTON. Sonic Boomers, one word, @protonmail.com.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
And we promise that we will write back to you too. So that's going to do it for this week's edition of the Sonic Boomers. We'll be here again next week to sound off on another topic that we pull off the top of our heads.
Or somewhere else.
Until then, I am Pete Torriello.
And I'm Maureen Torriello.
Goodbye. God bless you. Thank you. Thank you for listening.